plant you have ever replaced was a win for your garden center. Today, that cycle ends. If you clicked on this video, I already know something about you. You have bought the plants, put them in the ground, and by the second or third spring, you are back at the nursery, standing in the same aisle buying the same thing again. Maybe you blamed the weather. Maybe you blamed yourself. The truth is simpler. You were sold a plant that was never going to last. I am giving you 9 specific cultivars today, chosen because I have watched them come back year after year in my own beds, in American soil, through hot summers and hard winters, for decades. And I want to tell you something most gardening advice gets backwards. August is the best month to plant every one of them, not spring. August. I have grown food and kept beds in this American backyard for over 30 years. Before that, I grew up in rural Nagano among my father's vegetable rows and fruit trees. He did not buy plants on a schedule. He chose a plant once, placed it once, and tended it patiently for years. He called that patience the real work. The planting itself was almost nothing. Now, the replacement trap, and there is a real structure to it worth understanding. Garden centers are not evil. They are businesses, and the model works best when you come back every spring. That means the plants on prominent display tend to be annuals, which die by design, and weak perennial cultivars, which fail within a few years. The stronger varieties, the ones that establish and spread and never need touching, tend to sit in the back. They move slowly precisely because they don't need replacing. A plant you buy once and keep for 20 years is not a repeat customer. A plant you replace every 2 years is. The retail selection tends to favor what propagates easily and ships well, not what performs best over time. That is the gap. That is where these 9 plants live. Now, the August advantage, and there is a reason almost no one talks about it. Spring planting is a habit, not a strategy. You plant in May, the soil is still cool, and the roots spend their first months trying to establish in ground that is still waking up. By midsummer, that new plant is fighting heat stress at the same time it is trying to root. Some survive it. Many just stall. August planting works differently. The soil is deeply warm, the way it only gets in late summer, and warm soil is biologically active soil. Roots placed in August grow quickly into that warmth and keep growing through September and into October before the ground cools. By the time winter arrives, the root system is established. By spring, that plant does not behave like a year 2 plant. You skip an entire season of struggle. Root establishment research on warm season planting supports this pattern consistently. More vigorous top growth the following June. Earlier blooming, more resistance to summer drought. If this is the kind of thing you wish someone had told you years ago, that is what this channel is. One method, once a week, tested for 30 years before I ever say it out loud. Nothing sold to you. Subscribe if you want the next one. Now, the first plant, and it is one most American gardeners have never considered. Epimedium, common name barrenwort, is a shade-tolerant ground cover most gardeners never try because it looks modest sitting in the nursery pot. That modesty is exactly why it belongs here. Plant it in dry shade, under a tree, along the north-facing fence, in the spots where almost nothing else performs, and it will form a colony. Not in one season. Over several, by year 5, you have a weed-suppressing mat of heart-shaped leaves that nothing penetrates. By year 15, that colony is still there, still dense, still self-sustaining. I have never divided mine. I have never fed it. A flat of 4 plants costs around $22. Drought-tolerant once established, deer-resistant, planted in August, water the first year, walk away. Next, a native grass that does something almost no ornamental grass on the market will do. Prairie dropseed, Sporobolus heterolepis, is fine-textured and arching, with a fragrance in late summer that surprises people the first time they notice it. Some describe it as buttery, almost like fresh popcorn. By year 3, it reaches 3 to 4 feet in spread and height, and it stays put. It does not run, does not send runners into the lawn or the neighboring bed. The clump tightens rather than collapsing outward with no division needed. The common alternatives, ribbon grass, variegated miscanthus, spread aggressively and require constant management. Prairie dropseed costs around $12 to $15 per plant and requires nothing after the first season. Full sun to part shade. Plant in August. Next, the black-eyed Susan most gardeners plant is Rudbeckia hirta, technically a short-lived perennial that behaves like a biennial in most American climates. Flowers in year 2 and declines. Year 4, you're buying it again. The version you want is Rudbeckia fulgida, Goldsturm. This is a different category of plant. It blooms reliably from midsummer into fall every year for 15 or more years, without any intervention. It spreads slowly by rhizomes, underground stems, forming an expanding clump rather than a fixed mound. I planted Goldsturm in a back bed in the early 2000s. Same clump, larger now, no attention from me since year 2. Full sun, covered soil, plant in August, water the first season, walk away. Roll call in the comments. Which of these first 3 are already in your beds? And what state are you gardening in? I read every single one. Now, the daylily, and not every daylily is the same plant. The common orange daylily, Hemerocallis fulva, is the one along roadsides and fence lines across rural America. It spreads by runners, blooms for about 3 weeks, and crowds out everything around it. The cultivar you want is Hemerocallis Stella de Oro, one of the most tested daylilies in American horticultural trials, known for reblooming continuously across 5 to 6 months of the growing season, given adequate sun. Does not run. The clump expands slowly and can be divided if you want more plants, but division is not required. Plants cost $7 to $12 each and perform identically at year 5, year 10, and year 20. Next, the perennial that's everywhere in garden centers and almost never sold in its correct form. Most Echinacea sold under that name is a first-generation hybrid chosen for unusual colors, doubles, oranges, yellows, that look striking in the pot and collapse within 3 years. The root system on many of these newer hybrids is shallow and poorly adapted to cold. Echinacea purpurea, Magnus, is a different plant. It was named Perennial Plant of the Year in 1998 by the Perennial Plant Association based on performance data from trial gardens across North America. It has large flat-rayed flowers, no drooping petals, and self-seeds true to type, meaning the seedlings that appear around it are reliable hybrids. Over time, a single plant becomes a small colony that expands rather than collapses. Goldfinches feed on the seed heads in fall, which matters to me because my wife Yuki once told me she'd keep the garden through any bad season as long as the goldfinches came back. Full sun to part shade. Cost is around $8 to $10 per plant. Plant Magnus in August, now the most patient plant on this list and the most rewarding for that patience. Baptisia australis false indigo. Year 1, it looks like almost nothing, a small mound of blue-green foliage. Year 3, it begins to show you what it is. A 3-foot mound with tall spikes of indigo-purple flowers in late spring, followed by inflated seed pods that rattle in the breeze through fall. By year 5, the plant is structural, anchoring a bed the way a small shrub would. By year 20, it is still identical, still requiring nothing. Baptisia fixes nitrogen, meaning the root system hosts bacteria that pull nitrogen from the air and return it to the soil, improving the ground it grows in. The deep taproot makes it drought tolerant after year 2. It costs $12 to $18 as a young plant and will outlive most of the other plants in your garden. Plant in August, full sun, water the first season, walk away. Now, the last 3, the ones I would plant if I could only choose 3. Salvia nemorosa, Caradonna, ornamental sage. Common Salvia nemorosa varieties bloom once in early summer and finish with deadheading extending it only slightly. Caradonna repeat blooms across 3 or more flushes per season. If deadheaded after each flush, deep violet-purple flowers on near black stems. Hardy through zone 4, drought-tolerant after establishment, drawing long-tongued bumblebees with unusual intensity. $9 to $12 per plant. The difference is 5 months of bloom versus 5 weeks. Full sun, well-drained soil, plant in August. Garden phlox, Phlox paniculata, is the most popular perennial in American gardens, and it comes in a version that fails and a version that doesn't, sold side by side with no indication which is which. The failure mode is powdery mildew, a fungal condition coating the leaves of susceptible cultivars by midsummer, leaving them gray and papery. By year 3 in a susceptible variety, the crown is weak and the plant declines. David was named Perennial Plant of the Year in 2002, selected specifically for mildew resistance that is held for over 20 years in trial gardens. The flowers are white, large-headed, and fragrant. Fragrance my father would have recognized from the older Japanese garden phlox he sometimes grew among his rows in Nagano. Not for any use, just for the smell of the evening air. $8 to $12, reblooms with deadheading, space 18 inches apart for airflow. The simplest mildew prevention there is. Plant in August, full sun to part shade. Last, the slowest plant on this list, and the one still standing when everything else has been replaced twice. A bare root peony planted in August gives you almost nothing in year 1, modest growth in year 2, and a first real bloom by year 3. By year 5, the plant is full and structural. I planted Peony lactiflora, Sarah Bernhardt, in my own bed in the early 1990s. Same plant, still there, never divided, never moved, never fed beyond fall compost. Blooms every June. Large pink double flowers with a fragrance that fills that corner of the yard completely. Yuki cuts them for the house every year. Bare root peonies cost $10 to $25. A 30-year plant with no comparison in the garden center. Plant crown eyes 2 inches below the soil surface, no deeper or it will not bloom. Full sun, average soil, water the first season, then walk away for the next 3 decades. One honest limitation before I close, and I will not skip it. Plant on this list requires consistent watering through the first full growing season after planting. That is non-negotiable. 2 minutes every 3 days, costs about $17, and covers most of what these plants need. Miss that first season of water, and some of these, particularly the Baptisia and the Peony, will not make it. The method works. Requires your attention for 1 season, not 20. The good garden is not the complicated one. It is the one planted with intention, once, and tended with patience rather than replaced with money. Next time, I am going to show you the 4 perennials that look exactly like 4 of the plants on this list, but fail by year 3, and how to tell them apart before you buy.